Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So before I get started with this video, I want to send my condolences and my prayers to the families of the victims in Las Vegas. As you all know, a white man by the name of Stephen Paddock, a 64-year-old man, opened fire on a group of people attending a concert in Las Vegas. It was a country music concert. He killed over 50 people, injuring well over 200 people. This is the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. And I agree with Trump for once. He said that this was an act of pure evil, and there's no other way to describe this horrific crime. And before the police could arrest him and get some answers out of him, this man took his own life. So the police didn't even shoot him. He shot it himself, before they could get to him. So there are a lot of questions that are being raised about this whole thing. What are his motivations? Why did he do this? Apparently this was well planned. This was not some spontaneous act, because this man rented a room in the Mandalay hotel. I think it was the 32nd floor, overlooking where this concert was to occur. This man used a hammer-like device to knock out the window to his hotel room so that he could take aim at a group of people attending the concert. This man had 10 rifles with him. He had automatic weapons. And this whole thing about automatic weapons brings me to my first point in this video, and that's about gun control. Despite all these tragedies that have occurred time and time again, Congress has failed to act. We thought that Congress would act during the Sandy Hook situation, where you had children, little children, killed by a mad gunman. A whole bunch of children, over 20-something children killed. You would think that Congress would have incentive to act and impose reasonable gun control laws, but they failed to act. You had tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, whether we're talking about Virginia Tech, Columbine. Even when members of Congress have been shot by gunmen, Congress has failed to do anything to impose any kind of reasonable gun control laws. And it's gotten to a point that these things happen so regularly that people have become numb to it. It has become normal to hear about the next mass shooting. We just keep it moving. We hear this story and we keep it moving. We don't even feel anything anymore. We don't even value human life anymore. And Congress does nothing because Congress has no heart. Congress is owned by the NRA. That's the only way you can explain their failure to do anything when it comes to imposing reasonable gun control laws. Now, I support people's right to bear arms, but I think that there should be some kind of reasonable restraints on that right. There is no reason why an ordinary citizen should have automatic weapons capable of killing mass numbers of people in a matter of minutes. There's no need for that, for a civilian to have that type of weapon. Those weapons only belong on the battlefield. And it's a damn shame that this man was able to possess such weapons and kill so many people. But even after this tragedy, I will not be surprised if Congress does absolutely nothing about this situation. And this brings me to another issue. Often you hear people complain about so-called black-on-black violence. Whenever there's a police killing or something like that and people demand justice, the first thing that these conservatives bring up is this whole black-on-black violence issue. They say, well, what about black-on-black violence? That's what they say. And they use that term to suggest that there's something pathological about black people, that there's something inherently violent about black people. But when you have white people kill other white people, kill mass numbers of white people, the media never calls it white-on-white violence. They never do that because they don't criminalize the white community as a collective for the actions of an individual. They judge that individual as an individual. White men are not subjected to racial profiling because of acts like this of this person. But when a black person commits a crime, all of a sudden the whole community is criminalized, where you have situations like what happened in New York with the stop and frisk program, where black people were stopped simply for being black, simply for living in certain neighborhoods. But you won't see them round up white men because of things like this. You won't see them profiling white men, even though most of these mass killers, most of these serial killers, most of the people that commit these types of crimes are white. But they don't ask, why is that? They don't go into detail as to why is it that the white man has a greater tendency to commit these types of crimes. All these people, these racists, these white supremacists, they never ask that question when they want to question about whether or not black people are inherent criminals. They never look at themselves and look at the violence that this white man has done. If this had been an Arab, it would have been called terrorism right away. People would have been talking about banning all Arabs. That would have gave Donald Trump even more incentive to be more harsh with his travel ban. And that's a prime example of collective punishment, punishing a whole religion based on the acts of some within that religion. They never punish all white men for the actions of a few white men like this man. Again, this is another reminder of how white privilege exists in this society. It's another reminder of double standards in this society. And, this is something that has to be addressed. So right now, we don't know this man's motivation. We don't know if he was motivated by any kind of political ideology or religious ideology. At this point, we don't know. But we know this. When these types of acts of violence occur, they're quick to call it terrorism if it's an Arab involved or a Muslim involved. But when it comes to these white people committing the most heinous of acts, the most brutal of acts, the most violent of acts, they are so hesitant to refer to those acts as terrorism. They go out of their way to try to wait it out, to gather all the evidence before they mention the T word, terrorism. But when it comes to Arabs and Muslims or other groups of people, they're quick to call it terrorism. And again, that's just another example of the double standards in this society. It's another example of white privilege in this society. And it speaks to the nature of the corporate bourgeois media. So again, I just send my condolences to the victims of this tragedy. As more information comes out about this incident, I may continue to follow it and discuss it. But tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.